In the summer of 2012, 17-year-old Andreas Kletzl is looking forward to a special trip. Together with his brother Philip and their best friend Daniel, he flies to Mallorca, a gift from his father to thank them for their hard work in the family business. It's supposed to be an unforgettable getaway, full of adventure and relaxation. But the very first night ends in a disaster that only 2 of the 3 young men survive. And although at first glance there are signs pointing to an accident, more and more inconsistencies gradually come to light, suggesting that someone is going to great lengths to cover up the truth. The Kletzl family of 5 lives in Upper Austria. The parents, Hannelore and Heinrich, run a successful metalworking company where their 2 sons, Philip and Andreas, are also employed. Their daughter is still in school. Philip is 25 years old and Andreas is 17 and still in the middle of his apprenticeship. He loves his job, is dedicated, and spends a lot of time with his best friend Daniel, who also works at the company. To thank his sons and Daniel for their hard work and dedication, Heinrich gives the 3 young men a 5-day trip to Mallorca in August. They had originally planned a road trip to Italy, but Heinrich was worried that might be too dangerous. On August 16, 2012, Heinrich and Hannelore drive Andreas, Philip, and Daniel to the airport in Salzburg. Their flight to Palma de Mallorca departs at 5:55 p.m. The 3 are excited and looking forward to the days ahead. They land on time around 8 p.m., take a bus to the island's party district, and check in to the Hotel Rio Playa Park. Their rooms are on different floors. Daniel's room is on the 1st floor, Andreas's on the 4th, and Philip's on the 6th. After dinner together, they relax at the pool bar, call their parents, and assure them that they've arrived safely. Around 11 p.m., they go to their rooms to unpack their suitcases. While Philip goes to sleep shortly afterward, Andreas and Daniel want to explore the island. Around midnight, they set off. They end up at Club Paradis, have a beer, and meet a tourist from Germany there. At his suggestion, they soon move on to the Bierkönig, one of the largest bars in town. It doesn't take long before the 2 get lost in the crowd. Around 3 a.m., Daniel returns to the hotel alone. He assumes that Andreas has also found his way back and is already in bed, but that is not the case. While Philip and Daniel are sleeping peacefully, Andreas is recorded by a surveillance camera at 4:51 a.m. on August 17, 2012, entering the Hotel Obelisco. He greets the night porter and walks up the stairs. It seems as though he knows the hotel. Why he is there and what he has been doing in the 2 hours since he and Daniel parted ways remains unclear. Nor is it known what happens in the next hour and a half. At 6:18 a.m., 3 vacationers alert the hotel front desk. They report that they were sitting on their 2nd floor balcony when they heard a loud bang. When they looked down, they saw a young man lying there, half naked and motionless in a pool of blood. At roughly the same time, just 200 meters away, the morning begins for Philip and Daniel as well. Philip goes down for breakfast at 9 a.m., completely unaware of what has happened, but the hotel manager stops him and asks him to come to his office. At first, Philip thinks it's about paperwork regarding their documents, but instead, he receives the terrible news that his brother is dead. Andreas had died after falling over a stair railing. Stunned, Philip calls his parents. His mother still remembers that moment to this day. With a tearful voice, Philip told her the worst thing a mother could ever hear. "Mom, something terrible has happened. Andreas is dead." She shouted into the phone, "I'm coming to get you." Then the line went dead. Their daughter then came out of her room, still a bit sleepy since she was on summer break at the time. She asked what was going on, whereupon her parents told her that her brother Andreas was dead, and that they couldn't reach Philip anymore. The family desperately tries to get some clarity. Andreas's sister initially thinks it's a mix-up and calls Andreas's cell phone. And sure enough, someone answers. She hears voices and a TV playing, along with sounds as if someone is eating, before the call is hung up shortly after. She called again and again, hoping the person would pick up. When someone did pick up, she heard someone speaking Spanish, and then the call was hung up. Shortly afterward, the family was informed by the Spanish travel agency that Andreas, while intoxicated, had gone to the wrong hotel and fallen from the fire escape at the Obelisco. Allegedly, there were marks on the wall that would confirm the whole incident. While Andreas's parents were still in a state of shock, they were asked whether their son should be brought home in an urn or a coffin. It was the beginning of a nightmare that has yet to end for the family. Andreas's parents immediately travel to Mallorca. They have doubts about the authorities' statements, and Philip and Daniel also do not believe the official version. The Spanish authorities state that there will be no further investigation, as it was an accident. Every year, young people fall from balconies while intoxicated. The family is asked if they want Andreas's personal belongings back, and the case is subsequently closed. Andreas's family commissions an independent autopsy. This confirms what Daniel had already stated in his statement. The two had not consumed much alcohol, and Andreas was not intoxicated at any point. His blood alcohol level is 1.1 per ml, which does not indicate severe intoxication. When his family takes a closer look at the Hotel Obelisco, it becomes even clearer to them that Andreas's death could not have been an accident. He is said to have fallen over the wall of a fire escape, but the wall is 1.30 meters high, which makes an accidental fall rather unlikely. Andreas's parents have an impact angle analysis conducted. The results suggest that Andreas did not fall from the fire escape, but from the 6th floor balcony. The point of impact is about 4 meters away from the fire escape. It cannot be determined whether he fell or was pushed. However, the independent autopsy makes it clear that not all of his injuries are consistent with a fall. He has cuts and abrasions that suggest a prior struggle. There are traces of lipstick on his face and injuries on his fingers that indicate he had grabbed onto the sharp-edged railing of the balcony. Opposite the 6th floor balcony, there are blood spatters on the wall of the fire escape. This could indicate that Andreas was already injured when he fell from the balcony. At the family's request, the former head of the Munich Homicide Division, Josef Wülfling, analyzed the case and reached a similar conclusion. According to his findings, Andreas Kletzl did not die of natural causes. As for the externally visible injuries, the autopsy reports generally assume that all identified internal and external injuries are consistent with a fall. Unfortunately, no distinction was made between the injuries caused by the impact and those that must have occurred beforehand. The injuries to the legs and fingers were definitely already present before the body hit the ground. Fine blood spatters were found on the wall of the 6th floor, directly opposite the balcony, but these were not analyzed. If these bloodstains came from Andreas Kletzl, it would prove that he must have been hanging from the 6th floor balcony railing before he fell to his death. And there are even more clues that make an accident unlikely. First and foremost is the situation in which Andreas's clothing and personal belongings were found. At the time of his fall, Andreas was not wearing socks, shoes, or pants. His shoes were found in the hotel's staff corridor on the 1st floor. They were neatly lined up next to each other, completely soaked and full of sand. One of them contained a black sock belonging to Andreas. The second one was never found. Andreas's baseball cap was found on the 6th floor on the fire escape. His jeans are found on the 3rd floor. They are wet up to the knees, and Andreas's wallet is still in the pocket. More than 400 euros are missing. Andreas's father had given each of the young men 500 euros in spending money. Andreas kept all the money in his wallet and used it to pay for just a few drinks with Daniel. Given that Andreas's clothes are wet and sandy, it can be assumed that he was still on the beach during the 2 hours after he lost sight of Daniel and must have been standing in the water up to his knees. His cell phone remains missing to this day. No one knows who had it and answered the calls. Even days after his death, calls worth 3,600 euros were made abroad using his SIM card, including to Spain and Africa. The Spanish authorities, however, stick to their initial theory. They assume that Andreas went to the wrong hotel while drunk, got lost in the hallways, partially took off his clothes in the process, and then lay down to sleep on the fire escape until morning. Afterward, they claim, he fell over the fire escape railing while disoriented, or tried to jump into the pool from there. For Andreas's family, this version still makes no sense. They want answers. For 5 years, there was no progress in the case. Only then did the Spanish police feel compelled to assign a homicide unit to the investigation. Yet to this day, there are no results from the investigation. No one has been questioned, no leads have been followed, and there are still just as many unanswered questions as before. If it were up to Andreas's family, one question in particular should have been clarified from the start. Who was staying in the 6th floor room on the night of Andreas's death, from whose balcony Andreas is said to have fallen, according to the independent report? Yet the police never get to the bottom of this question. Andreas's parents suspect that their son met people that night who invited him to their hotel room. Perhaps these individuals are the only ones who know what really happened. But none of them has ever come forward to the police. In an interview with the Austrian newspaper News, the Spanish investigators openly admit that they would have investigated the case more thoroughly if Andreas had died in a quieter part of the island. But in the party district, they say, the death of a tourist is, unfortunately, nothing out of the ordinary. This statement leaves the family stunned. Nevertheless, they haven't given up and still hope that the truth behind Andreas's death will eventually come to light. And that brings us to the end of today's video. I want to draw as much attention as possible to the death of Andreas Kletzl. Even though I don't know what the truth is, it's clear that there are undoubtedly some inconsistencies in this case. I really hope that someday someone will provide the crucial clue and that Andreas's family will get answers to all their questions. If you leave a comment under the video, it will automatically be recommended to even more people. Maybe that's at least a small contribution we can make. By doing so, you're also supporting this channel. Thank you for watching, and I hope you have a wonderful morning, afternoon, or evening, whichever time you're watching this. And I hope to see you again in the next video. Until then, ciao everyone.